This is Talkin' Rock. Talkin' Rock. Your backstage pass to some of your favorite rock artists. Here's your host, Meltdown.
Well, let's kick off the new week with the new episode of Talkin' Rock. I appreciate you guys tuning by as I record this on a Monday. All right, coming up first, it's going to be Taylor Momsen, as you saw in the description. And then a guy named Daniel, I think, Bukszpan. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Anyways, he's got this book that's called Rush and 2112 50 Years. And we talk a lot about Rush, and I'm here for it. If you're going to talk Rush, count me in. So Daniel comes up here. After Taylor Momsen. The new record is going to be dropping in June. She's been posting pictures of the album along with the song titles and whatnot. I was kind of told once again before this interview to kind of keep it to just the tour and, the new single and whatnot. I've had a chance to listen to the record. It's awesome. That's all I'm going to say about that. But Taylor is so great. She was actually in Chile talking to me about this, about AC/DC, a lot of things all around the pretty reckless orbit. And, it's funny because there's a lot of stuff out there that she couldn't talk about yet. So maybe we'll have her back on in a couple months. Let's talk with Taylor Momsen to start up Talkin' Rock.
Good. How are you, man?
I'm doing well. Thanks for taking the time out. The new record comes out coming up on June 26th. But first, I just wanted to tell you, I saw you. I haven't had a chance to talk to you, but I saw you open up for AC/DC, as millions around the world did. And that was really cool, man. Just talk a little bit about that experience in a nutshell. I mean, commanding that big stage and everything.
It's been surreal, man. We're still in it. I'm currently in Chile with AC/DC right now. So we've been out with them for almost 3 years now. I'm going to be 3 different ages. I will have been 3 different ages with AC/DC, which is crazy. 3 birthdays.
I didn't even think about that. It's funny.
Yeah, it was all summer touring, so my birthday's in July.
Yeah.
But no, it's been phenomenal. I mean, AC/DC are just a force of nature, as we all know. But getting to watch them to get to play a show and then watch AC/DC after that, it's like the dream come true. It's amazing.
Yeah. I don't know if you know this or not, but you didn't play Detroit from 2017 until just last year. So that's how long it's been. And that was really cool to see you on that big stage like that. And you're going to be coming back through town here coming up in the fall. And you're going to be on a much smaller stage. So so you won't have to do so much running around, I suppose.
Yeah, just smaller steps. It'll be great.
Right. But
no, I'm so excited to be headlining, to have this tour be announced now is because we've had it in our pocket for a minute, and to have everything kind of coming out today it's very exciting for me, because headlining is, it's your own thing. It's your own show. You own the venue. It's your own rules. It's all of that stuff. And you don't have to get kicked off the stage at a certain time. Like, I can play as long as I want, and it's going to be fantastic. So we're so psyched.
Now, I mean, obviously with headlining a tour like that and stuff, I mean, now this is all on you. This is your thing now. I mean, how much added pressure is on you for that?
Oh, none. It's just all excitement.
Okay.
I think pressure to me comes from outside forces. And so when I'm fully in control of everything, which is what headlining is, that's freedom. That's the greatest place to live. So I'm so excited for it.
No, that's so cool. And of course, like I said, playing the Fillmore here, a legendary place in Detroit, Rock City. But before that, you got the new record coming out, Dear God, that drops on June 26th. From Death has already been released, and now the latest single, When I Wake Up. And I saw this quoted story of a dream becoming a nightmare when life of excess leads you on a roller coaster that is doomed to crash, but you just can't see it. It's a good time. You know what's funny about that statement right there? I was thinking about that. There are a lot of people in this world that don't get to lead a life of excess, and you've had that chance, and perhaps this is what that song is about. So tell me about the song and that quote.
Well, I mean, excess, I think anyone can lead a life of excess. I'm not talking financial excess. I'm talking about, the life that we all think is cool, but eventually it can only go on for so long. We all know the story. It's, where you're trying to escape by using something outside of yourself, and then, that eventually turns dark. Like that's not a sustainable life. And it's one that I, may or may not have lived for a while, and this song may or may not be about that. So it's, I think it gets glamorized a lot of the time, but at its core, it's actually, it's quite dark. Like, it can be quite dark. It's a good time until it's not. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking of. I wasn't talking about the money or stuff, but yeah, we've all seen those rock stars that live the life of excess. And it's funny because I've been in this business so long, I've seen rock stars live that life, and then I've seen them all sober up.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Sometimes at some point you gotta get your life together, or don't. But it's a slippery slope. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I was at lunch today talking with one of my friends who's a big fan of yours, and we were talking about just the classic rock sensibilities and the 70s rock kind of stuff that kind of, we've talked about this before, like you're kind of like an old soul, and this record has a lot of that, especially with this single. And I've only heard it a few times so far, but it kind of almost reminds me a little bit of like some sort of punk, like beatnik thing from the 70s.
Oh, totally. I can hear that. Release day is fun. And just because I get to hear everyone's take on it, I have my own, like, what it means to me and all my connotations with the music, because I've been sitting with it for so long. But to have it finally be out in the world and get to hear other people's interpretations is awesome. And it totally has a punk feel to it. I mean, you can't be a rock and roller and not have punk be one of your influences. At least I can't. So,
yeah. Yeah. Now, do you prefer to talk about what the songs really mean, or do you just like to kind of leave that vague, or let the listener kind of decide for themselves?
I love to let the listener decide, mostly because I think that's how I like to listen to music. I don't love listening to my favorite artists talk in depth about songs, because it taints it for me. Like, when I connect to a song, I relate it to my life and to myself and how it makes me feel or not feel, or whatever the thing. And as soon as you impart a story on it with a literal description, it takes all the magic out of it. Like, music should have layers to it and depth to it, and every time you listen to it you feel something new or discover something new. And as soon as the artist tells you something literal, it takes that out. And so I always like to kind of leave it open to interpretation. When I Wake Up, on the other hand, in one way is quite literal, so take that for what you will, but there is still a lot of I think depth in the lyrics themselves. If the more you listen to it, the more you'll see things inside it.
Yeah, but even when you were growing up or something, I mean, so if one of your favorite bands, would talk about, a song that you really liked and gave them the literal meaning, would that ruin it for you, or would it be like, oh, that's what that's about?
No, see, I don't like it. It's like Pink Floyd is one of my favorite bands, and Roger Waters did an interview a while ago. He was talking about Shining You Crazy Diamond, and he went into depth about how it was about Syd Barrett. And I did not want to know that. Like, I love Syd Barrett. I think it's an interesting fact, and I know it now. But now I think about Syd Barrett when I listen to "Shine on You, Crazy Diamond." Whereas before, it took me into my own mind and into my own life, and took me on this journey. And I can forget it and still do that, because Pink Floyd is unbelievable. But it was something that I didn't want to know. Like, you never want to look too far behind the curtain. I think that's just the way I like to do it.
Yeah. And, obviously you're a very creative person, very, very, art oriented. And back, in those days, at the Pink Floyds and all this stuff for the 70s, there was like this whole, when a record came out, it was like a piece of art, everything from the music to the cover. And I saw, just a couple of days ago, it's kind of funny. You posted about something about how many days it'd been since Confession. And I actually took out my calculator and I figured it out. I don't know why I did that.
Did you get it?
It was like 5 years and something. I'm like, I was thinking to myself, well, when would this have been? I don't know. Is that silly of me to do that?
No, not at all. It was very thought out on my part. It was the countdown was to, if you haven't figured it out, it was to when Death by Rock and Roll was released.
Okay. All right. See, I knew that there was something specific about that, but I couldn't really put my finger on it, but I did try to figure it out. But getting back...
we just picked a random date, 1851, when Yellow Fever was in its prime.
All right. Fair enough. Okay. Now it makes perfect sense. Now I feel like an idiot because I should have figured that out. Yeah, that makes perfect sense now, come to think about it. But yeah, this fifth record, Dear God, just posted a bunch of pictures on there, and like even with that Confession, it's like there's a lot of religious overtones on this album, or on the cover, I should say.
Yeah, well, and school, and it's. I think I don't want to get too into the art yet because the record is not out, and when you listen to the record in completion, all of that will make sense. There's nothing. It's all very thought out. So it's in the likes of a 70s artist, or where everything is important, as equally important as the next thing. It starts with the song, but from the imagery to the videos to the how many days we put on Instagram, it's all very strategically thought out on my part.
Man, I cannot believe I didn't get that. Okay, man. Now I'm going to be bummed at myself the whole night.
Hey, you know what? I'm impressed you pulled out a calculator at all. So that's more than a lot of people can say.
Yeah, because I was thinking to myself, that's got to mean something, right? But anyways, yeah, that's as far as the packaging is concerned. But Dear God, like I said, coming out on June 26th. Anything else you want to tell the fans about that's coming up or anything like that?
Just, there's so much that I can't say yet, and I'm still in that position. But so just stay tuned, I guess would be what I'd say. There's a lot. I promise we're going to keep delivering on my favorite phrase, which is soon. So right now it's, new record June 26th, When I Wake Up's out, and check that out, and new tour, a headline tour. So please come see us. It's going to be a lot of fun, and just keep checking the internet or wherever you get your information, because there's going to be more stuff coming.
Daniel Bukszpan, I do believe is how you say it. He's the author of Rush and 2112, 50 Years. What a great record. I had that on the turntable this morning. Man, it's so good. You can listen to it over and over and over again. Well, this book came out on March 10th, so it's available if you want to search it out on the internet. And, man, talking about Rush, I'm down with Daniel. Daniel, good to see you. How's things?
Great. How are you?
I'm doing well. So Rush and 2112, 50 Years. First of all, the first thing I think of right off the bat is, did you ever see the episode of Trailer Park Boys where they kidnapped Alex Lifeson and he was staying in room 2112?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, you can't be a Rush fan in this day and age and not have seen that at some point. Yeah.
Yeah, that's hysterical. So the book, so I was telling you before we started that I actually, I was listening to it this morning. I talked to Getty back in 2018, and he reiterated, as many people know that are Rush fans, that Rush was kind of doing okay, but when 2112 came out, that was a huge monster step for them, and possibly one that could have ended Rush, but instead it kind of propelled them. So tell me about the album and why you decided to write an entire book about it.
Oh, well, I had already done a book about them for the same publisher, Quarto, called Rush at 50, and that came out in 2024. And that's a career overview, totally comprehensive in that sense. And so when it was done, I was like, well, I guess that's it. I think I've said everything I have to say about that band. Some time goes by and the publisher asks me if I want to do a book about 2112. And instantly I was like, yes, I will do it. I just have endless capacity to talk about this band and their music. And, if they asked me to do another one tomorrow, I would do it. What I was really happy about, though, was that the album they wanted a book about was not Moving Pictures. I love Moving Pictures. There's a reason it's their biggest selling album. Absolute bangers on that album. But it's the one that gets written about the most. Mm-hmm. And I was actually very happy to have the opportunity to focus on one that's, it's obviously within the Rush catalog. 2112 is a major album. But if you're going to have one book about one album, it's usually Moving Pictures. So I was really happy that, that I could kind of get my teeth into this one.
Now, that's this book is available coming up. It was actually released on my birthday last week. So
happy birthday.
Yeah, thanks. I was talking about this the other day on the air that I kind of got back into Rush and prog rock for the most part. I mean, I grew up listening to Rush, but I mean, I was inundated with it on the radio, growing up in Buffalo, right across the border from Canada, and then I moved to Detroit here in 1995. A lot of Rush here too as well. But when I got back into vinyl in 2017, there's something about dropping the needle on a progressive rock album like a 2112 or a Fragile from Yes or whatever the case is, and walking away. And this record, like I said, I listened to it again today. there's so many things to talk about. How do you figure out where to start?
For me, it was about, splitting it up into kind of like a three-part story where the first part is just talking about, Rush leading up to 2112 and kind of what their situation was. Then, it's analysis of the album in the second part.
Okay.
And the third part is the effect that it had on their career. So it's really talking about, not just the album itself and the music and all that, but, what it meant to them and how it transformed their career. Like you were saying, they were in, they were in like fair to middling status, maybe you could say. But, they had not really broken out yet. And 2112, that was the breakthrough that opened the doors and made everything that came after possible. We wouldn't have moving pictures without 2112. So I think it's really important to recognize what that album did for them, and that it did that also by violating every rule that the music industry lives by. They did not play ball at all. It's just like, here's our album, take it or leave it. We took it. So, and the rest is history.
Yeah. What do you think makes this record a masterpiece in your opinion?
There's a few things that, just the idea first, like the concept is just so focused and well thought out that, I don't think you really need to be into like really highfalutin progressive rock to be able to follow it. I think anyone, regardless of where they're coming from, can really take in that concept the way they present it. If you want to appreciate it at a higher level, you can. And it absolutely supports that. But if you also just want to look at it as like 20 minutes of really great hard rock, it absolutely functions on that level too. That's really important. And that's actually something I feel like they've done throughout their whole career, where the music works on a couple of different levels. You've got, a song like Limelight, which is on the radio all the time. It, checks every box for what you want out of like, classic rock, FM radio, that's perfect for that. But if you sit down with it and look at the structure of the song and how it's written, it's kind of out there. The structure shifts a lot and changes, but if you're not someone who really gets off on that kind of stuff, if you're not really into complex music, you don't really notice it because it feels like a more traditional song when you listen to it. And just throughout their career, I find that comes up over and over again, where there's a very high level that you can appreciate it, and just a more meat and potatoes level where you can appreciate it. And 2112, I think, was really where they nailed that down. And as far as the story, everyone loves a good individual against authority story. We can all relate to that one, even just if you go to McDonald's for breakfast and you're 3 minutes late and they will not make your pancakes.
Yeah, right.
That's a 2112 story right there,
We have assumed control. But
yes.
Is this, do you think, as I was listening to it this morning, do you think this is where Neil Peart really came into his own?
I mean, honestly, I feel like he was kind of already most of the way there, like right when he started with the lyrics. And, if you look at the difference between the lyrics on the debut, where he was not involved yet.
Right.
And then on Fly By Night, it's like, whoa, what happened here? And same with the drumming, too. He just came in and completely transformed the band. As far as his lyrics, though, I feel like 2112 is where he really nailed down, like, how do I write a story? How do we do you could say Bytorn, the Snow Dog on Fly By Night, that's kind of a progressive song. It's sort of getting there. 2112 is there. All of it. And it really, I am hard pressed to think of another person who could have written that. I'm hard pressed to think of anyone who could have written those lyrics or, really made it the story that it was. Even Genesis or Yes, or I don't think that they were as into like, we're going to tell, a real literary story here. I think they were a little more vague in their lyrics and a little more symbolic in their lyrics. This is a lot more straightforward. So I think that helped it break through for a lot of people.
It is funny just talking to you. It's like when people think of concept albums, they think of The Wall and they think of Operation Mindcrime and stuff like that. I don't know. Does 2112 get its due when it comes to concept records?
Well, I mean, on the one hand, it's in the strictest sense, it's not a concept album because the concept is only on side one. Side two is not related to the concept at all.
Fair enough. There you go. Yeah.
Well, and the other thing people always say about it is that it's a prog rock record. And I don't think it is. Certainly if you're doing a 20-minute song, you will get called prog rock, period. That's how it is. But really, to me, when I listen to that music, that's a hard rock record. And like, I'm talking like hard also, they are not playing around. To me, they didn't really get like proggy until the next record and the one after that, Farewell to Kings and Hemispheres. Very progressive records. But no, I mean, in the pantheon of progressive rock albums, of concept albums, I think it actually does today. I think it does get its due. At the time, probably not. But today, now that some time has passed and people have had a chance to really listen to it and evaluate it, I think it proudly stands at the top of the mountain, with a lot of the other albums you talked about also. It's not the only one. But I mean, they, in my opinion, they really nailed it with that one.
Yeah, there are some 20-minute prog rock songs that I just cannot get into. But I think that like you said, that first side, it's like it's so thought out and so well done, and maybe just because we've heard it over and over and over again, but it's such a great piece of music.
Well, I mean, if you want to, it's split up into 7 suites, I guess, or movements, I guess, or whatever you want to call them. But if you want to, you can put on that side of the record and pretend it's just 7 songs. Yeah, it works that way. If you want to take it on that level, it totally works that way. And not to name names, but Yes, whose name I am naming, they have stuff, like Tales from Topographic Oceans is 4 20-minute songs. And I mean, to me, and I love Yes, please don't get me wrong, but to me, that record is just what they bit off way more than they could chew. And they would have been much better with like just a single album, much more concise presentation. I think the difference, though, is they set out to record 20-minute songs. Like that was the point. And it's like, and we'll figure out how to get them to 20 minutes later. With 2112, I don't think it was. I don't think it was as contrived as that. I think just they wrote the music that they wrote, and it turned out that way. I think that's more. Yeah, and that's why it works also, because they're not saying we need a 7-minute song, we need a 5-minute. Just that's probably not really a good way to work anyway. Yeah, but.
Yeah, sometimes you might hear a song, you're like, yeah, they're just adding to this song as they're playing it.
And on a lot of those, 20-minute epics that we have all heard from many bands throughout our lives, it's like, okay, this is a 20-minute song, but there may be 6 minutes of music here worth listening to, and the rest of it is all like sound effects and wind. Yeah, it's an attempt to pad it. And they didn't do that. There is no padding. There's not a second of padding or filler or any of it anywhere on this record.
No, it's a pretty flawless side for sure. Flawless record. What kind of research did you go into? Neil was known not to do many interviews and stuff. Maybe back in the 70s when this record came out, maybe there was some stuff floating around. But what kind of research did you do for this book?
Well, I interviewed the co-producer of the record, Terry Brown, Donna Halper, who's the woman credited with discovering Rush, and who worked at Mercury Records while they were doing that album, and Hugh Syme, who did all their album covers. And, they gave me, very good insight into, what the climate was like at the label when they were working there, what the label wanted from them, just kind of what they were up against and how they dealt with it. And, Terry Brown, the co-producer, told me he was, they had been having some, like their last tour had not been well attended and their last record didn't sell that great. So they were definitely under some pressure from the label. But Terry Brown, the co-producer, told me like they really checked all of that at the door when they came in to record. And that between the four of them, it was like, let's just make a great record. And that's really what guided them. And that's always been their priority, too, is, just number one, what we must make good music. Everything else is secondary to that. Mm-hmm. And, he described it, as a fun environment with lots of collaboration and spontaneous. They came in knowing what they wanted to do and with some finished demos, that are similar to what ended up on the record. But he said there was still a lot of room for spontaneous ideas and kind of on the fly creativity. And, when your label is possibly going to drop you if you're not commercial enough, that's a really difficult environment to be in and to be creative in.
Yeah, for sure.
And well, especially if it's like, OK, we got to get a single here, boys. What are we going to do? And they just didn't. And I think that was the smartest decision. And they just kind of proceeded as they normally did. And the whole point was just let's get out of here with a great record that we can really stand behind and that really means something to us. And what's funny about that is, the label famously wanted a single, some kind of mainstream single that we can get on radio, And I would argue that the 2112 suite, all 20 minutes of it is the single. Mm. Just it's a 20-minute single. But what it accomplished for them basically was the same thing as what a label would hope the single would do and open the doors for you. Just they couldn't sit there and consciously be like, okay, what do the kids want to hear about from rock music these days that will make them go out and buy our record? It just wasn't this contrived thing at all. And I mean, I think that's been part of their longevity, too, is, people know they will just never they don't have a Beth like Kiss does.
Yeah.
They just it's just not there. And it's not who they ever were. So they did the right thing, in my opinion.
Yeah, and like Kiss, they did tour with Kiss back in the 70s, and those are historic as well. Have you met any of the guys from Rush?
I have not, and a lot of it has to do with that, in my opinion, they're still grieving Neil.
Yeah, and
I just don't want to be like, hi, I'm some unknown author knocking on your door. Give me access. Sorry about your drummer. It just the whole thing feels a little icky to me.
Yeah.
And I mean, if the book ends up in their hands and they like it and I get a phone call, hey, it's Getty, wonderful. But I'm not chasing it. And that's OK.
Well, I mean, even before you wrote the book, you never had a chance to meet them or nothing like that. So.
No. I mean, the only time I've been in the same room with them was at Madison Square Garden.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I've talked about this before, but Neil was, infamous or famous, I guess, for not going to the meet and greets and stuff. And one of the funniest meet and greets I ever went to was with Rush, and the tour manager said that Neil would not be there because he was working on a crocheting project. And like I said on the air the other day, I don't know if he ever finished it. I don't.
Oh, well, no, yeah. It's the unfinished crochet. I don't know. I mean, it's well documented.
Yeah.
That he was just not like an outgoing, like social, gregarious type of guy. I think, and one thing I covered in the book, too, is they did this interview with New Music Express, a British magazine, and they got completely raked over the coals. Just the whole thing. It was, you could call it a hit piece or a hatchet job, if you like. And I think Neil he felt just so burned by the experience that I think he was like, you know what, I'm just going to keep my mouth shut. Because there are a lot of people out there who not only will misunderstand us, but are determined to misunderstand us and to misrepresent us. And I don't want any part of that. I get it. I absolutely totally, I talk about that review towards the end of the book, and the guy was portraying them as fascists because Neil read Ayn Rand and credited her on the 2112 story, which is ridiculous. I'm sorry. I mean, you could look through all of their music, and I'm just not seeing anything about fascism, like pro-fascism, or
Right.
it's just not there,
Yeah.
But there are a lot of people in journalism with agendas where it doesn't matter what you say, they'll come away with, there were, we're living now in the era of the headline with a question mark, and yeah, I mean, and to me, that's just completely dishonest. And that's, the reporter wants to say something, but it's not true. But if he puts a question mark at the end, then it's like, I don't know, opinion, who knows? I don't know. And that New Music Express article absolutely should have had a headline with a question mark. Are Rush fascists?
Yeah, right. Well, back in the day, when I was growing up and you were growing up, it's like, you'd see interviews in magazines that may have taken place a month and a half earlier, or if it was on the radio and you missed it, it went off into the ether, never to be heard again most times. And now I think, with the internet and with YouTube and podcasting and all this other stuff, you can listen to these interviews and hear it right from the horse's mouth as opposed to what some writer would talk about.
Yeah, that's a lot better. Although they will still, I have found, take like one little excerpt of something you've said,
sure,
make that the article and misrepresent you that way. And since people don't actually go back and listen to the interview and be like, oh, did he really say that? They'll just take it at face value. So there's always new ways to get misrepresented, and there's always new dishonest people, and I just think that, when you listen to Limelight and read those lyrics, and that's just a couple of years after this interview happened, to me, that's Neil being like, thank you for my career. You guys are all great. I love you. Please don't talk to me. And I think stuff like that happened to them in the press probably had a lot to do with that, because it's just like, if you're just going to misrepresent what I say, then I'm not playing.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
And plus, I think that Neil was one of these guys that didn't like the adulation rained on him.
No, he didn't like that one bit. And, part of why, when he got sick, no one knew.
Right.
Because, he asked everyone to keep it a secret, I think in part because he didn't want people like showing up outside his house singing Closer to the Heart to him, which they absolutely 100% would have done if they had known he was sick, But part of why I'm still sort of reluctant to try to get in touch with those guys is they had to carry that around for 3 years, and not say anything. And that had to be so difficult for them. And just, that must have just been such a burden. You were talking about one time when you talked to Getty in 2018. Whatever you were talking about, up here in his mind, he knows my friend is dying and I can't say anything.
Yeah.
That takes a toll. That's just incredibly heavy, And I mean, I think the tour that they're doing now and getting back out there, that's their way of taking this whole past few years with all that happening and starting to let it go.
Mm-hmm.
I think the tour is a really important step in them being able to really grieve Neil properly and, go to the acceptance part of the, 5 stages of grief.
Well, I talked to Alex last year and we did talk about Neil, and obviously I'm not, I'm a huge fan. I'm not digging for stuff, but I'm just like, hey man, what was Neil like to work with, blah, blah, blah. And he could not answer that question fast enough because he wanted people to know how bright he was and how caring he was, and just the whole thing. And he didn't, I don't know, for lack of a better term, take offense to me talking about Neil or anything like that. He was, he seemed to love talking about Neil, to be honest with you. And it's like, I understand exactly what you're saying too, so I don't want you to think I'm misconstruing what you're saying. It's like, I have a job to do. And he was at the time promoting Envy of None. This was before they announced the tour and whatnot. And I thought that was the only time. Well, I shouldn't say I have talked to Alex before, but that was the first time I interviewed him, and he was fantastic.
Well, I mean, if what you're asking him is what was Neil like to work with, I mean,
Yeah.
To me, that's a great question. That's totally acceptable. There's no part of it that sounds to me like, some like yellow journalist trying to, get dirt.
Yeah.
You certainly didn't ask, like, before Neil died, what was his brain like?
Yeah.
You respected their privacy. You respected the fact that they wanted to keep all that quiet. And I think what I've found is, if you want to talk to them about music, if you want to talk to them about how they worked, all that, they're happy to do it. But they were really like a tight knit little family.
Yeah.
And there are places you just don't go. And if you can respect that and not, they were just never a band that was about like controversy and like they weren't like Motley Crue, they weren't, or Jane's Addiction fighting each other on stage.
That is true.
Just none of that sloppy stuff ever came out. And I think that was just how they were. They were really just about the music and the whole kind of personality side of it. I just don't know that was very interesting to them, or that's really what they wanted,
Yeah, for sure. And, having seen them a few times and watched them on stage, I mean, these guys were, like you said, they were a brotherhood, and they genuinely loved each other. You never heard of an argument that they had. Or, I mean, they were like best friends. And when I was talking to Alex, he's like, yeah, sometimes, he mentioned, he goes, yeah, Geddy and I will just, we'll just get a cup of coffee and go into my studio and jam. This was last April or something. It's like, they still continue to hang out and love each other's presence.
Those two, I mean, they've known each other since grammar school.
Right.
And they've formed a really tight bond right off the bat at that time, and the two of them, their friendship that they've had, that's been the through line up to today, and I'm sure continuing after today. So their monitor engineer told me a story actually for Rush at 50, but that I think is pretty relevant here, where, very early on in their career, their manager asked them, how do you want to deal with royalties? How do you want to deal with the question of royalties? Because, Neil is writing the lyrics, but you all work on the arrangements, and maybe one guy writes this melody. And I don't know which member it was, but they said basically split everything 3 ways and we never talk about this again.
Yeah. They
just didn't want anything in their orbit that might threaten the friendship or that might affect the friendship. Like that was just so important to them. And it's part of why they never got a 4th member, until now, But at the time, in the 80s, they were thinking about it, because Geddy was doing a lot more keyboard stuff,
right,
and his workload was definitely going up, And they considered, like, I think it was on the Power Windows tour where they were considering, like, maybe we get a dedicated keyboard player for this. But eventually they decided not to, because I remember Neil saying, like, for whatever reason, the 3 of us, that works. And I think if you were to add anything to that, it would just throw everything off. And we don't want that. And so we will happily trigger every sample and all of that ourselves and step on every pedal ourselves, rather than deal with some new person coming in 10 years into what we're doing.
Right.
I get it. That totally makes sense.
And
you can't have a third person enter your marriage,
right?
And everything works. It's something's going to happen,
Did you read Ghost Rider?
Yeah. Well, I lie. Actually, I read maybe the first half of Ghost Rider. I couldn't get through it, not because it's not well written, because of course it's well written.
Yeah.
But it was just so painful, and my God, your heart just goes out to the guy. It's just so terrible what happened to his family.
Yeah.
And I think part of that was also part of my reluctance to get in touch with them, is because they'd also been through that. they've really had a lot of heavy stuff happen to them, like over the past, 25, 30 years. And, they're funny guys. They have a sense of humor. They were on Trailer Park Boys, all that. But you have to respect what they've been through and really, in my view, just not be too demanding of their time. Because they really have been through it. And, maybe now it's okay. But I just don't want to interfere with that or be insensitive to that.
Yeah, I got you. Well, I'll tell you what, Daniel, we'll push everybody towards the book. It's called Rush in 2112 50 Years. That's out right now. And I could talk Rush for the next 3 hours. I'm a fan.
Easily.
Yeah. And, I one day, I keep saying it. I grew up in Buffalo, like I said, and one day I'm going to stop at Lakeside Park. It's always on my way, but it's probably a 20-minute detour from where I'm going. And I drive through St. Catharines all the time. I've driven through St. Catharines 100 times, if not more. And one day I'll get over there now that they're building that pavilion and everything else. So it sounds like
I think it's finished.
Yeah.
I think they finished. So, yeah, don't quote me on that. Certainly use Google before taking my word for that. But I think it's, or maybe they just dedicated it. I'm sorry, I don't remember.
Yeah, it's been in the news quite a bit lately. But so I'm going to stop out there. So, Daniel, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Great talking Rush with you.
Yeah, thanks very much.
Just a quick heads up before I shut it down for this episode. The last episode of the podcast, which came out last week, features Sebastian Bach talking about Twisted Sister and more. So go back and give that a listen if you haven't yet. Got to thank Daniel for his time and Taylor Momsen as well. Hopefully when she figures all this out and the record drops, we could talk to her in more detail about that and much, much more. And as always, thank you guys so much for listening.
Thank you for listening to Talkin' Rock with Meltdown. You can help this podcast grow by giving it a 5-star rating and writing a review on Apple and iTunes. Plus, feel free to subscribe and share it with your friends. Until next time, thanks for listening to Talkin' Rock.